It's a big surprise. Nobody thought the ocean was this deep. So all of a sudden we've got scientists saying, why is that?
Deep sea researchers just broke the world record by sending a robotic explorer 31,000 feet, 9,448 meters down. And the footage they brought back is pure nightmare fuel. This mission to the Hadal zone proved that everything we learned in school about the food chain is basically a lie.
Is it a little hole? Is it a big hole? What kind of feature is it down there? There's a whole lot of questions you get when you find this one spectacular reading.
Instead of relying on sunlight, these deep-sea monsters are thriving on volcanic chemicals in a place that should crush steel like a soda can. It is a key detail that these animals are not just surviving. They are dominating an ecosystem larger than most countries. Deepest life found. The mission began with a machine designed to survive the impossible. This submersible, known as the Fenduji or Striver, represents the peak of human engineering. It was built to withstand a crushing weight that would flatten a tank in seconds. When the team from the Chinese Academy of Sciences dropped it into the water, they were aiming for the Hadal zone. This is a place named after Hades, the Greek god of the underworld, and for good reason. It is a world of eternal night where the temperature stays just above freezing. The goal was to reach the very bottom of the Mariana Trench, specifically targeting depths of 31,000 feet, 9,448 meters.
We have been studying this place for 25 years, and yet we still find new animals. It is like treasure hunting, and you never know the nature of the treasure.
For perspective, that is deeper than a commercial jet flies in the sky. As the robot descended, its external cameras captured the slow fade of the world we know. First, the blue turned to gray, then to a thick, oppressive black. At these depths, the water pressure is a staggering 8 tons per square inch. That is more than 1,000 times the pressure we feel at sea level. Basically, it is like having an entire fleet of school buses balanced on your thumb. Most scientists expected to find a barren landscape of mud and rock, and they thought the only things living there would be tiny microbes or maybe a few scattered scavengers eating the debris that falls from the surface. They call this debris marine snow, which consists of dead fish and plants drifting down from the sunlight. But here is the catch. The cameras didn't show a desert. Instead, they recorded dense communities of tube worms, clams, and shrimp-like creatures. These weren't just hanging on for dear life. They were thriving in massive groups. This is a key detail because it means there is a food source at the bottom of the world that doesn't come from the sun. The team observed a living river of creatures stretching across more than 1,500 miles of the trench floor. The sheer scale of this ecosystem is what sent shockwaves through the community. Nobody expected this to happen because the environment is so hostile. The water is filled with toxic chemicals like methane and hydrogen sulfide. These are substances that would end the life of almost any creature on the surface instantly. Yet, in the Mariana Trench, they are the foundation of life. The robot dived 23 times, and each time it found more evidence of this hidden civilization. It turns out that the deeper the robot went, the more crowded the seafloor became. The researchers were seeing the deepest colony of complex animals ever recorded in human history. This discovery, published in major journals like Nature, contradicts the most basic rules of biology we have followed for centuries. We are looking at a functioning society of animals where no society was supposed to exist. The implications for our understanding of the planet are massive. We have spent billions of years evolving to live under the sun, but these creatures have spent millions of years mastering the dark. The robot captured footage of massive fields of microbial mats that look like white underwater rugs. These mats are the primary producers for the entire trench. They don't use photosynthesis. Instead, they use a process called chemosynthesis. This means they turn the chemical energy from the Earth's crust into food. It is a completely independent system. If the sun went out tomorrow, every plant and animal on the surface would be gone. But the creatures at 31,000 feet, 9,448 meters, wouldn't even notice. They are essentially living on a different planet that just happens to be under our feet. As the Striver robot continued its patrol, It found that these communities are not isolated. They are part of a vast network that follows the tectonic plates. Where the Earth's crust cracks and leaks, life explodes. Scientists found that these seeps are like gas stations for the deep sea. The animals crowd around them to get their fill of energy. This is a massive shift in how we view the ocean floor. It is not just a graveyard for things that sink. It is a nursery for things that rise from the heat of the planet. But there is a dark side to this discovery that the researchers didn't see coming. Even in this pristine, untouched abyss, the signs of human interference were already waiting for them, lurking in the shadows of the trenches. Impossible survival tactics. The discovery of chemosynthesis in such complex animals is what really changed the game. In every middle school science class, teachers explain that the sun is the source of all energy. Sunlight feeds the grass, the cows eat the grass, and we eat the cows. It is a simple chain, but in the Hadal zone, that chain is broken into pieces. The animals found 31,000 feet, 9,448 meters, down, have bypassed the sun entirely. They have formed a partnership with specialized bacteria that live inside their bodies. These bacteria take the poisonous gases from the Earth and turn them into sugar and protein. It is a level of biological engineering that seems like science fiction. It is actually a highly efficient way to live. Because these chemicals are constantly leaking from the seafloor, the food supply is basically infinite. The creatures themselves have adapted in ways that seem impossible. Take the amphipods, which are small shrimp-like crustaceans found at the very bottom. At a depth of 36,000 feet, 10,972 meters, the pressure is so high it should literally dissolve their bones. Normally, calcium carbonate, the stuff that makes up shells and bones, becomes soluble and melts away under such extreme pressure. However, these creatures have evolved a special chemical coating that acts like a shield. They also have a high concentration of a molecule called TMAO in their systems. This molecule acts like a structural support for their proteins, keeping them from being crushed by the weight of the ocean. What most people don't realize is that these animals are physically built to live in a high-pressure tank. If you brought them to the surface, they would basically fall apart because they need that pressure to stay held together. Another strange find was the sheer diversity of the microbes. A separate study called the Mariana Trench Environment and Ecology Research Project cataloged over 7,000 different types of microbes in the sediment. Here is the deal. Nearly 90% of them were completely new to science. We are talking about thousands of life forms that have never been seen, named, or studied by humans. It is like finding a whole new continent of life hidden in the mud. Some of these microbes are designed to eat oil, others eat methane, and some even seem to process heavy metals. They are the ultimate survivors. Scientists are now looking at these microbes as a potential source for new medicines. Since they live in such extreme conditions, their chemistry is unlike anything we find on land. We could be looking at the next generation of antibiotics or cancer treatments hidden in the gut of a trench worm. But the biology gets even weirder when you look at how they move. In the deep ocean, energy is precious. You don't want to waste it swimming around if you don't have to. The robot recorded fish that move with a slow, ghostly grace, appearing almost transparent. Their skin is so thin you can see their internal organs. They have lost their pigment because there is no light to reflect, so being colorful is a waste of energy. Some of these fish don't even have eyes because there is nothing to see. Instead, they rely on highly sensitive vibration sensors along their bodies. They can feel a single shrimp moving 50 feet away. This allows them to hunt in total darkness with perfect accuracy. It's not that simple, though, because they also have to avoid being hunted themselves. The ecosystem is a delicate balance of predators and prey, all operating in slow motion. Because the water is so cold, their metabolisms are incredibly slow. A deep-sea clam might live for over 100 years, growing only a fraction of an inch every decade. This slow pace of life makes the discovery of such dense colonies even more shocking. It means these populations have been building up for thousands, maybe millions of years, undisturbed by the world above. They have created a stable, ancient civilization that follows its own rules. But as we look closer at these impossible survival tactics, we realize that they provide more than just a lesson in biology. They are actually a map that points us away from Earth and toward the icy moons orbiting the giant planets of our solar system. Moon-ocean proxies. The connection between the Mariana Trench and outer space is the part that keeps many scientists awake at night. NASA and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory have been watching these deep-sea missions very closely. They even designed their own robot called Orpheus to test out technologies for future space missions. Why? Because the conditions 31,000 feet, 9,448 meters, under the Pacific are almost identical to what we expect to find on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Europa has a thick crust of ice, but underneath that ice is a massive ocean of liquid water. Europa has a thick crust of ice, but underneath that ice is a massive ocean of liquid water. Scientists estimate this ocean could be 50 miles, 80 kilometers, deep. The pressure at the bottom of Europa's ocean would be very similar to the pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. If life can thrive in the dark, high-pressure, toxic environment of Earth's trenches, there is no reason it couldn't be thriving on Europa or Saturn's moon, Enceladus. Both of these moons show evidence of hydrothermal vents and chemical seeps. These are the exact things that fuel the communities our robots just found. So here's the deal. We might not need to find a planet with a sun and an atmosphere like ours to find aliens. We just need to find a moon with a warm core and some salty water. The Striver mission basically provided the blueprint for what to look for. It proved that life is much tougher than we gave it credit for. It doesn't need a perfect environment. It just needs a source of energy and some water. Hands down, this is the most exciting development in the search for extraterrestrial life in decades. Research teams are already discussing how to send a version of the Striver submersible to these moons. They would need a robot that can drill through miles of ice and then navigate an abyss that is even deeper than our own. The data from the Mariana Trench is helping engineers figure out what materials can survive those depths for long periods. They need sensors that won't crack and batteries that can handle the extreme cold. The 7,000 new species of microbes we found are also being studied to see how they might survive on a moon like Enceladus. If these microbes can eat rock and gas on Earth, they could easily be the primary residents of a subsurface ocean in space. What most people don't realize is that the deep ocean is actually more of an alien environment than Mars is. On Mars, we can at least see the surface and use rovers to drive around. But in the trenches, we are dealing with a medium that is crushing, dark, and corrosive. Mastering the deep ocean is the ultimate training ground for deep space exploration. The fact that we found complex life like shrimp and worms means we might find more than just bacteria on other moons. We could be looking at entire ecosystems of alien animals swimming under the ice of Jupiter. It is a mind-blowing thought that we are finding the keys to the universe by looking down instead of up. Every time a robot goes into the trench, it is like a practice run for a mission to another world. The discovery that life can survive on nothing but chemicals has expanded the habitable zone of our solar system significantly. We used to think life was limited to a narrow band around the sun. Now we know it can exist anywhere there is internal heat. This changes everything for NASA's future budgets and mission goals. But while we are dreaming of alien oceans, we are failing to protect the one we already have. The same technology that lets us explore these depths is also being used to plan for their total destruction, and the damage is already starting to show. Deepest trash sites. The crazy part is that even at 31,000 feet, 9,448 meters down, the robot didn't just find life, it found our trash.
The diver found as yet undiscovered species of marine life, but in the pitch-dark ocean, where even sunlight cannot penetrate, the diver made an unsettling discovery. He found plastic.
Scientists were horrified to see plastic bags and candy wrappers sitting on the floor of the Mariana Trench. This is a place where no human has ever walked, yet our influence is everywhere. They conducted a study and found that the concentration of microplastics in the deep trench is actually higher than it is at the surface. Think about that for a second. The deepest, most remote place on our planet is acting like a giant drain for all the world's plastic pollution. There were 13,500 microplastic particles per cubic meter detected at depths of 22,000 feet, 6,705 meters. It gets worse, though. the researchers started looking inside the animals they discovered. They found microplastics inside the guts of every single amphipod they tested from the bottom of the trench. These creatures are eating our garbage before we even have a chance to give them a scientific name. There are an estimated 70 trillion plastic particles floating in the upper layers of the ocean, and eventually, they all sink. Once they hit the bottom of a trench, they are stuck there forever. There is no sunlight to break them down, and the temperatures are too cold for them to decompose. We are essentially poisoning an ecosystem that took millions of years to evolve. The plastic is becoming part of the food chain, moving from the microbes into the shrimp and then into the larger predators. Basically, we have turned the ultimate sanctuary of life into a garbage dump. This is a massive problem because these deep-sea creatures are very sensitive to changes in their environment. They have lived in a stable world for a very long time. Adding chemical pollutants and plastic toxins can throw the whole system out of balance. And it is not just plastic. Chemical runoff from factories and farms eventually finds its way into the deep. Because the trenches are the lowest points on Earth, everything flows into them. We are creating a toxic smog at the bottom of the world that most people will never see. Everyone's obsessed with saving the rainforests, and that is important. But nobody is talking about the plastic smog in the abyss. The robot's cameras showed that these particles are drifting like light snow over the colonies of tube worms. It is a haunting image, a vibrant civilization of alien-like creatures living among the remnants of our disposable culture. If this continues, we might end up losing these species before we even understand how they work. We are in a race to discover what is down there before we accidentally destroy it all. And get this, the next phase of human activity in the deep sea is going to be even more invasive than plastic pollution. The deep ocean has stayed hidden for so long because it was too expensive and difficult to reach. But now that we have robots like the Striver, the doors are wide open. Corporations and governments are looking at the deep sea floor and seeing dollar signs. They aren't interested in the Chemosynthesis, 7,000 new microbes, or the alien-like fish. They want what is buried beneath them. As the robot finished its survey of the trash, it also mapped out massive deposits of valuable minerals. This is setting the stage for a new kind of gold rush that could change the face of the planet forever, and not in a good way. Final frontier destruction. The latest news from the deep involves a massive push for deep-sea mining that has transitioned from theoretical speculation to immediate industrial reality. In late 2025, the United States government signed Executive Order 1.285, a directive specifically engineered to bypass traditional bureaucratic bottlenecks and accelerate the extraction of critical minerals from the ocean floor. This move marks a definitive shift in American resource policy, prioritizing domestic supply chain security over the prevailing international hesitation regarding seabed disturbance. The primary targets are cobalt, nickel, and manganese, elements that have become the hard currency of the 21st century. These minerals are the backbone of the lithium-ion batteries required for the global transition to electric vehicles and the sophisticated circuitry of high-tech military hardware. Without a steady supply of these materials, the infrastructure of the future remains a blueprint rather than a reality. Yet the source of these minerals lies in one of the most fragile environments known to science. The minerals in question are found within polymetallic nodules, which are potato-sized rocks that sit loosely on the surface of the abyssal plains. To the untrained eye, they look like ordinary stones, but they are actually concentrated deposits of metals that have precipitated out of the seawater over millions of years. Because they sit on top of the seafloor rather than being buried deep within the crust, they are deceptively easy to reach. However, the method of extraction is far from surgical. Companies are deploying massive, tractor-sized hydraulic machines designed to scrape and suction the top layer of the sediment. This process effectively vacuums the seafloor, pulling up the nodules along with the top several inches of silt and every living organism in its path. It is an industrial intervention on a scale that the deep ocean, characterized by its extreme stability and slow pace of change, is entirely unequipped to handle. The ecological fallout of these operations is already being quantified, and the data is grim. A landmark study released in December 2025 provided the first comprehensive look at the aftermath of a small-scale test mining site. Within just 2 months of the machinery being withdrawn, the population of megafauna, sea cucumbers, urchins, and small crustaceans dropped by 37%. This decline was not limited to the direct path of the mining treads. The machines generate immense sediment plumes, clouds of fine silt, and crushed mineral matter that are discharged back into the water column. These plumes do not settle quickly in the near-freezing still waters of the deep. Instead, they can remain suspended for months, traveling for dozens of miles and settling over vast areas. This toxic snow chokes the delicate filter-feeding mechanisms of deep-sea corals and sponges, effectively suffocating creatures that have lived undisturbed for centuries. What many policymakers fail to grasp is the temporal scale of the deep ocean. These mineral nodules are not renewable resources. They grow at a rate of roughly 1 to 10 millimeters every million years. By removing them, we are not just taking a resource. We are permanently deleting the only hard substrate available in the soft sediment environment of the abyss. These nodules serve as essential anchors for specialized life forms, including deep-sea anemones and xenophyophores, which are among the largest single-celled organisms on Earth. Once these rocks are gone, the habitat they provide is extinguished forever. There is no biological equivalent to replanting a forest or restoring a wetland in the deep sea. We are witnessing the total liquidation of a complex ecosystem to facilitate the manufacturing of consumer electronics, trading an ancient evolutionary legacy for a battery with a 10-year lifespan. The geopolitical dimension of this race is equally intense. While the United States has accelerated its efforts through Executive Order 1.285, it is currently playing catch-up in a theater dominated by China. As of 2026, China holds the highest number of exploration contracts issued by the International Seabed Authority and currently processes nearly 90% of the world's rare earth elements. This monopoly on the processing infrastructure gives Beijing a strategic stranglehold on the global tech market, prompting the Western push into the deep as a matter of national security. The Mariana Trench has become the geographical centerpiece of this conflict. Despite its status as a protected area, the edges of the Mariana Trench Marine National Monument are now being targeted for exploration. Proposals from recent administrations have sought to redraw the boundaries of what constitutes protected waters to allow for mining right at the doorstep of the deepest place on Earth. It is a direct confrontation between the desperate need for industrial raw materials and the preservation of the planet's most extreme and unique biological frontier. The speed at which this industry has matured caught the scientific community off guard. For decades, the technical challenges of operating under the crushing pressures of the abyss, roughly 15,000 pounds per square inch at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, acted as a natural barrier to exploitation. However, the convergence of robotics, autonomous navigation, and high-strength materials has finally bridged the gap. We now possess the capability to strip mine the abyss before we have even developed a basic understanding of its biodiversity. The creatures living 31,000 feet below the surface, such as the translucent snailfish and the giant amphipods, exist in a world that operates on chemical energy rather than sunlight. They are effectively alien life forms on our own planet, and they have no defense against the mechanical intrusion of a civilization they will never see. Economists and environmental scientists have attempted to put a price tag on the ecological value of the deep sea, with current estimates exceeding $500 billion. This figure accounts for the ocean's role in carbon sequestration, nutrient cycling, and the potential for bioprospecting. The deep ocean is a massive carbon sink. By disturbing the sediment, we risk releasing stored carbon back into the water column, potentially exacerbating the very climate crisis that electric vehicles are intended to solve. Furthermore, the microbes found in the deep sea, surviving in high-pressure and toxic environments, are the primary source for the next generation of antibiotics and cancer-fighting enzymes. If we destroy these communities, we are essentially burning the world's most important library of biological secrets before we've even learned to read the titles on the shelves. The data gathered by the Striver robot, which successfully navigated the deepest reaches of the abyss, has confirmed that the deep is far from a barren wasteland. It is an intricate connected system that regulates the Earth's life support mechanisms. The deep ocean absorbs nearly a third of the excess heat produced by human activity, and is a critical link in the global conveyor belt of oxygen and nutrients. Disrupting the seafloor on a planetary scale is a gamble with the Earth's homeostasis. We are making these irreversible decisions based on a dataset that covers less than 0.001% of the seafloor. We are acting with the confidence of experts while possessing the knowledge of tourists. So the discovery of life at 31,000 feet, 9,448 meters, proves we know almost nothing about our own planet. Are we prepared to destroy these alien worlds for minerals before we even understand them? Let us know what you think in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. Would you sacrifice the deep ocean for cheaper technology?